Hello and welcome to the first episode of the Real Music Talks. Today's guest is Georgie Murray. How are you doing?
Hello, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you. So we kind of go back where we both grew up in Swindon. Started off in a similar music scene. So could you talk about like how you got into that scene and how you got into music?
Sure. So the Swindon music scene, I spent a lot of my childhood in Swindon. The music scene there was quite interesting because I'd say this started around 2006, leading up to 2012 is when I moved to Brighton. But within those 6 years, that scene was going through a bit of a change itself. So there was a lot of like metal and rock bands, and then you got to 2010 where everyone started to move to indie. And a little softer sound.
Yeah.
And then I noticed some like folk creeping in as well. So yeah, it was around that time that I was in bands and kind of going through that same change as well. I started with a heavier sound, transitioned to a softer sound, and then house was really big. So and it's hard because you don't want to just jump on every bandwagon, but you get influenced by what you hear and new sounds as well. You can't be narrow-minded with it. So yeah, I guess I've been influenced by the change in the scene within Swindon, but then also just moving around myself and meeting other artists and producers and bands and stuff.
And how would you describe your sound today? So the music you're releasing now, what kind of influence is that, and what sort of style would you classify it as?
Yeah, I'm I'm doing a 180 next year or 2021, and I've got an EP I'm working on that's a brand new sound, and I think I'd describe it as a bit disco.
Right. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, a bit disco, a bit dark R&B. So yeah, I don't. Hmm, yeah, I'm still working on it as well, so I can't say decisively what it is. But there's elements of disco. There's a bit of R&B. It's electronic. It's got some soul. It's hopefully just tracks that people can put on and groove around to. I know, like we can't really go out right now. We can't go out to clubs and bars and stuff. But I want it to be the EP that you can put on and still feel like you're on a night out or you're having an experience, even if you're just dancing in your kitchen.
And what sort of creative process do you have when writing music? So, like the EP you're working on, are you collaborating with loads of different artists?
No, because I've spent a lot of time over the last few years collaborating with lots of different people, which has been great. This time I was like, I want to do something for myself,
Yeah.
something that is entirely me. I don't have to kind of get a second opinion on. I don't have to maybe go back and forth so much. Because as good as collaborating is, you do have to find compromise most of the time. So I was like,
Mm.
I kind of want to
Yeah.
be selfish and just and have something that's purely me. And also then I'm quite curious to see what I do by myself because I've been collaborating for so long, whether or not these collaborations have influenced me. So the process for that has been to find the beats, rather than collaborating with a producer and building it out from scratch, finding beats that are already made, and seeing what I can do with them. Can I chop them up? Can I obviously add vocals? How can I structure it? How can I change it? But it is all to be my decision this time. So it's kind of a new challenge for me. And it sounds a bit weird to be like, I'm finally putting something out by myself after
Yeah.
so long. But it's, yeah, because I've been collaborating with producers and rappers and people for ages, I just wanted something to be mine.
That makes sense. It's proper sort of self-indulgent, very creative. So do you sort of
Yeah.
like produce on the computer, and do you have like a studio setup and stuff like that?
So I've just started producing again. I produced when I was in college, and then stopped for a while. I just didn't have the software anymore.
Mm.
And then yeah, this year I was really fortunate to move into a space of my own, and I've started creating a studio. So use this little room as a studio. So I've got my mic set up in there. I've got a desk to build. So yeah, I'm going to have my own studio set up, and I've finally got Logic back on my laptop, and I've just started producing again. So yeah, and I spend half of my life on YouTube just searching up, how do I do this thing? How do I do that thing? Because I think it's quite important that you need to be able to produce somewhat, and comp and mix your own vocals somewhat, because you're not expected to be an expert as a singer, but if you can't bring any production knowledge to the table, you're so dependent on other people. And then you can't even get the sound you want because you're following somebody else's lead, somebody else is producing, somebody else is mixing, and then you don't even have the terms to describe how you want something to sound. And to me, it just feels like this isn't really my work if somebody else is doing all the work.
Yeah, that makes sense, and I think it helps your creative process as well. Like, because you can record stuff, listen back to it, you can kind of start to sculpt the sound to where you want it to go, and like you develop the music yourself. Whereas like someone else influences that process from how they make, you know, like the guitar sound or the keyboard sound or anything like that. So I wanted to ask, like, what instruments do you actually play?
So I sing, and I also play bass. I play a little bit of guitar, so strum chords basically. I've got a kalimba, which is really fun. It's just like a little it's this wooden instrument with metal keys that you pluck.
Oh wow.
So we've got that, which I guess I just learn separate songs on it. And that's it. I don't really have enough space here for something like a drum kit. Otherwise, I'd love to learn drums. Though being in flats, that is a challenge.
I've just been just before this video, I've been shooting some drum videos actually.
Oh wow! How are your neighbours with that?
Sorry, say again.
How are your neighbours with you drumming?
Well, I've got an electric kit, so it's not so
So
bad.
you just stick your headphones on.
Yeah, I mean, it was expensive, but it was worth it, to be honest, because it sounds amazing. It's like being in a studio. You put your headphones on, you forget what you're playing, so it's like, yeah. But I do imagine like noise restrictions and space restrictions really do kind of stop that. But I think it's worth getting something like a pad. I'd recommend getting like a little drum pad to program beats in.
Yes, yeah, I wanted to get a MIDI keyboard to do that as well. Yeah, you're right on the electronic drum kit. I got my partner one of those for their birthday earlier this year, and they absolutely love it. I think I need to steal it back.
Hopefully, you can just go on it and play a little bit and record a few things here and there. So it's like quite a difficult time for the music industry with like COVID at the moment.
Tell me about it. Yes.
What do you think's going to happen like next year? And what kind of struggles have you had with not being able to play gigs? You know, how have you kept yourself busy? And what do you think we're going to be able to do about it next year? I'd say. Like, do you think we're going to get out of it? Do you think the music industry will recover?
I think the music industry will recover. It will be forced to branch out into different ways of making money. I think people will probably move on to more physical copies of music, so things like vinyl, might even go back to tapes or CDs, because obviously streamers make you peanuts. Like, you can't survive off streaming money unless you're Drake.
Yeah.
But in terms of gigs, I don't see gigs happening for a while. And in fact, every gig that I know of in the last couple months has been cancelled last minute. So for an artist or a singer or a band, there's just no point in even trying to plan gigs right now, because it's gonna get cancelled. So I think we've got to be creative. We've got to move with the times. You can't be stuck at this point. Otherwise, you just won't be able to survive. So there are people doing gigs, live stream gigs. It's not quite the same experience, but I guess it is what you make of it. You can, if you get somebody into live streaming with a proper camera, they can move around. You can get your lighting. You can create an interesting backdrop. So there are ways to make it more interesting, but I think gigs as we used to know them are gone for quite a long time, and I think we in the music industry have to roll with the punches, and we just have to think of something new. And I don't know exactly what what that is yet, but it's, yeah, it definitely forces you to think differently.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely going to have to be a few creative things, and I'm hoping that the brand that I'm launching here, Real Music, is going to launch a few new things next year. So I'm really excited about that stuff.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you as well, because obviously you've got a different stage name to Georgie. Could you talk to us a little bit about that and how you came up with it and why?
Sure. So yeah, my stage name or artist name is Kinnoha. And for me, I actually really struggle with live performances, and this is going to sound really weird, but I was kind of almost grateful that we can't gig right now because I get really bad stage fright still.
Yeah,
And it doesn't matter how big the crowd is. It could be 10 people that are all my best mates, or it could be 1,000 people I don't know. But it's just that feeling of all eyes being on you, and then I just kind of, my throat gets tight, which isn't ideal as a singer. So for me, I've found it beneficial to separate myself from my music side. So I have a full-time job outside of music, and I have other things in my life, and I don't want to be mixing those two sides. I've got even different friend groups basically who know me as either Georgie or know me as Kiki or Kinnoha. And for me, it's easier to compartmentalize things that way, so I can step into that side of me or step into the other side of me and kind of have different personalities as well. Like Beyonce has Sasha Fierce, her alter ego. I think it's like a toned down version of that. You step into what is essentially a character, and you can play that part. I can go on stage and sing a lot more easily when it's not me and my real name. So it helps. And then the name itself, I wish I had a more interesting story for this. I needed a name, and I needed a name nobody else had. And then also, I came up with a name when I was about 18, and I'm actually quite glad I came up with this particular name because I was I was like Google proofing it to check, does anybody else have this name? Is it connected with any other brands? Is anybody going to confuse me for anything? And so I had a couple options, and then this one it wasn't out there, and I was like, maybe that's because it's crap, but hey, nobody else is going to confuse me for another brand or another artist or whatever. So I wanted something unique, and yeah, I mean, the story behind the name is that it's a combination of my favorite letters.
right, okay.
I started writing down words, and then I started picking out the letters from all those words I liked, and just visually in my brain what I enjoyed writing and what I enjoyed the sounds of. And yeah, I mean, I wasn't very sober when I when I just looked at the combination of letters, and I was like, da 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 da, Kinnoha. Oh yeah, Kinnoha. And then afterwards, I was thinking, hey, it kind of sounds a bit like Rihanna with the two N's. But
Yeah.
if it works for her, if it's good enough for Rihanna, it's good enough for me.
Cool. That's really interesting that you talk about it like that, because some people find it difficult to separate the artist from the person, and vice
Yes.
versa. Whereas some people make it very strictly, stage person is completely different to who I am outside of it, and I find that really interesting. Because there's always some like crossover, so it's just like, where do you draw that line, and at what point are you being like your authentic self? Like through your music compared to
Yeah.
your authentic self in your everyday life.
Yeah, and even when we were younger, there would be people in Swindon in bands that they were quite like well known around the town. And I mean, you can probably think of a few characters there where they went with their real names, and everybody knew them. And I feel like they probably couldn't get away from their music side, and they probably had to feel like they were putting on a show all the time. Or at least that's what I thought of it as. I was like, I don't really want to be this music person 24/7. That's exhausting. So you need something to separate the two.
Absolutely, yeah. So you talked about like you get stage fright. How do you sort of deal with that?
Oh, well, I haven't this year. I haven't had to bother. So usually it's between a combination of things that I use. I used to use alcohol, which small doses is okay, but not ideal. Yeah, as I said, like thinking of it as this isn't me. This is Kinnoha. And the other thing is the fear of regret really drives me. I think if I don't do this, by the time I'm 60, 70, touch wood if I get to that age, will I look back and be like, I wish I'd just done it. I wish I'd just had a few more balls and gone for it. So that's what drives me at the moment, like thinking, and also remembering nobody else cares. No, I'm the one that cares the most. No one else is
Yeah,
going to remember this moment next week. Whereas I'm thinking, oh my God, what if I fall over and everybody laughs at me forever? And like, they don't care. Nobody cares. And I had a mentor early this year. I was really lucky. I did a program with Hyper Tribe, who are a organization that work with lots of musicians. And I did a mentor program with them, and they paired me with Kelly Lee, who is this fantastic singer. And if you haven't heard of her, you've definitely heard her voice on a lot of famous songs. She really helped me to put out my fears, and she asked me a lot of questions around what are you scared of here, and what's the root cause behind this. And the root cause, when I actually came to thinking about it, is thinking that I'm not good enough, thinking that I don't deserve to be on the stage. Everyone else here is probably better than me. Everyone else on the lineup's much more talented than I am. And it's just realizing that you are worth it, and you kind of have to believe in yourself. Otherwise, no one else is going to believe you. And nobody wants to really watch someone nervously perform. So if I don't have a good time and get over myself, then no one else is going to enjoy the performance. So it's a bit deep, but
no, that's great. It's interesting to hear about. I mean, I used to. I feel like for me, I talked about this on one of my other shows, but my first ever gig was like my worst gig ever. So since
you got it
that
out of the
happened,
way.
exactly, and it was like, well, like it can't be worse than that gig, really.
What happened at the gig?
Oh, it was like in school, year 9, the entire year group and everyone's parents and the mayor and everything was there. So it was a massive audience.
Why was the mayor there?
It was some like weird like presentation evening, like to do with I think it was like SATs results or something. But literally playing the drums, and I put basically we were doing Last Resort by Papa Roach, and I changed the drum beats. So I had loads of like double bass pedaling. And the beater went through the skin completely on the bass drum, literally within the first 30
Oh,
seconds. So there's like no bass drum for like the whole thing.
oh man.
And I was
But I
there like
mean,
swearing and stuff and cursing.
you know what? That's not as bad as I thought. I thought you would. Yeah, I thought you were going to say you just kind of like kept dropping sticks or something. But
I
that's
did.
not that bad.
It's not too bad. I did one. I regret this actually happening. I may as well tell everyone who cares. I mean, at the furnace, I threw my drumstick before and
Yeah.
hit this girl in the head. I had to go and make sure she was alright because she was like crying and she was really upset and stuff, and it's really quite embarrassing.
I shouldn't laugh, but that is really funny. I'm sure she's fine now.
Yeah,
Didn't cause any
hopefully it hasn't
permanent
scarred
damage.
her. No, yeah.
Oh, God.
Okay.
Yeah, I miss venues like that though. I feel like the Furnace in Swinton's this like place
Mm,
where everybody would perform. It was kind of a mark of like, okay, you're actually you're a half decent band. We'll put you on at
yeah,
the Furnace. It was
yeah.
like you made it. You made it to Furnace level. But now I don't think Furnace exists anymore, and there's barely any venues like that in small towns. So it's quite sad. And I guess now even less of a chance of there being any venues like that. So I feel for kids who, like us, we didn't grow up in big cities, but we live there now. But there's thousands of kids out there that they want to get into the music industry, but they don't really have a lot of opportunities.
Mm.
Hmm.
And it doesn't expose them to it either as well. Like, I mean, going to those gigs, it just made you like, I mean, every time I went to someone else's gig, I was always like, I wish I was on the stage. Do you know what I mean?
That's a good
That
sign.
constant exposure, you know.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, thanks for the chat today. Really appreciate it. Where can everyone find you on social media?
So you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Spotify, Apple Music. It's Kinnoha. That's spelled Kinnoha. Yeah, thank
Perfect.
you so much for having me.
No problem. Anytime. It's been great.
Yeah, it's nice to see an old face and yeah, know that you're still alive.
Yeah, Angie.
Keep going.
Cheers, guys. Thanks for watching.